So in this video, I'll give you all the techniques that you need to be able to make the delphinium flower. Now, if you are in our Flora Society, you will have received your summer instalment to make the delphinium. And included in your bouquet, you will have 25 grams of cream, 25 grams of blue, and 25 grams of hyacinth. I hope you really enjoy crocheting with this colour. Again, it's a really sophisticated pastel joining the TOFT colour range, and so this is our hyacinth blue. But we're going to be making a delphinium flower with it. And before you start crocheting, you actually have a choice. So to make the delphinium, you will not need to use all three colours unless you want to. It will in fact just take two colours to make your selection of flowers. And so the decision you've got to make, having had a look at delphiniums and all the different varieties that they come in, is they come in lots of different combinations of bold blues, pale blues and creams. And so it's your choice as to which colours you would like to make your delphinium in. To make the full flower, so like this, it will just take two balls of any of your selected colours. So choose what you want to combine. Your colour one will be your main one, and your colour two will be your contrast one that goes around the middle. So these two here are using the hyacinth as colour one with both blue and cream as the contrast. These two here, you've got cream as your colour one with hyacinth and blue as the contrast. And these ones here, you've got blue as your colour one with hyacinth or cream as your contrast. Now, I've stuck to quite a strict plan when doing it. So I've just used two colours, colour one and colour two. Obviously, you can choose to make yours bloom even more magnificently if you want to. And you could continue to make more flowers, combining the different colours and put those into your gaps should you wish. But what I'm going to show you here is all the techniques to make the basis of the flower, adding your contrast colour two on, and then how you put those onto your flower to finish it off. So before we even get going with making our flowers, I would get you 3 balls of lime and make all your body and head pieces first. Now, in your pattern, you'll find that you have got a centralizer point to mark the center of the tummy. That can be quite useful with this one because we're actually going to sew, or what I would recommend doing is sewing the eyes on first before you actually attach the flowers. So you will find you've got the place centralizer point in your pattern, which will just mark the center of the tummy. So go ahead and stuff as we normally do with a flower. But what I want to emphasise and show you is what's important with these elongated head designs. So like this one where you've got a tall flower. This will be a shape that will be used to represent lots of different tall flowers. So say the foxglove, the delphinium, the gladioli, all those tall ones that you find at the back of an English cottage garden flower bed. That will be represented with these tall ones. But what's important with them is to make sure that they've not got a floppy head. So we've got to make sure we've got plenty of stuffing between the body and the head through that neck so that they hold their own heads up. So when you're putting that together, you'll see I put a little bit of stuffing into either sets of leaves, a bit more into those straightforward legs. And as I always say, when you are stuffing, try not to roll it into balls when you're putting it in. Keep it in one loose piece and push it in one go if you can. That'll make it less lumpy and more like a continuous set of stuffing. So I just stuff the bottom of the legs like that. You could choose to stuff them further up if you want to, but I like the idea that they can sit on a shelf like that with the two little legs hanging over the edge. So when it comes to stuffing our body and head, this is me just removing my stitch marker. So for anyone that's wondering why we don't refer to these as stitch markers, is because I really strongly advocate using a tracking contrast piece of yarn as your stitch marker to mark your end rounds. I tend to use these kind of lobster clasp stitch markers, which we call a centralizer, more to mark positions to help with my sewing up. And in the delphinium, in addition to that tummy position that you've seen marked on there, we're actually going to use it to mark a stitch in our flower that we can go on and work our centres. So I'll show you all of that as to how they're very useful because you can clip them in and out when they're on that lobster claw. So when you're pushing this in using the handle of your hook, do you see how I'm using the top of my hook to pull that stuffing through, while at the same time using the handle of my hook to push that in? And what I'm trying to do is push in a really big bit in one piece, and that's because I want to get stuffing in this head, but also stuffing running straight through the neck in one piece. I don't want to just stuff my head and then stuff my body separately, because that'll give me a weaker, floppier neck. So I'm pulling from that end and pushing from this end. There we go. And you want it to be relatively firm, because obviously it does want to stand up and hold those flowers on. So just tease that stuffing up into the head like that. There we go. I'm going to need a little bit more going in there. There we go. Let me get another piece. But the most important thing is that you've got stuffing through that neck. So again, I've pushed some up into that neck, and I'm going to fit the rest of this into the body. There we go. And we're in. So you see how I've stuffed that to the point where I can hold that up like that, and my head's not flopping backwards and forwards on my body. That is got firm pieces of stuffing through the middle of the neck so that the head will stand up on its own. So once you've got that into position, as you would ordinarily do, get to the end and gather the stitches. There we go, and secure that off. Then with our leaves, gather the tip and then sew that in and through. Like that, and then the last one. Now this is where your centralizer in your tummy becomes very useful to put your limbs into position, and then we're going to actually sew the eyes on before we continue to make some flowers with this design. So using your centralizer as the middle of your tummy, so lying it flat like that, take the arms, and I will usually put the top ones on first on any of my designs and then do the bottom ones afterwards. Over sew to close that off, and then place that in position on one side and sew it into that neckline. And this would apply not just to the delphinium, to lots and lots of different flowers, is why I'm doing the sewing up in full for you on this video, so that you've got a reference for all of your different flowers. On future videos, I'll be more likely to just focus in on the techniques specific to that one. But I thought, seeing as though this is the first one where we're properly using a centralizer, I'd give you all of that so you've got it in one reference place. So go through and over sew onto the other side, like that. And then to finish off an end, go in and around a couple of stitches. There we go. Then onto the other side. So put that, if you keep laying it back on the table, it can really help with your symmetry, because you'll be able to lay it flat and remember that you've got that centralizer point there to refer to. So same thing, I will just close this off. Put that into there and over sew on this side. Flip that over and do the other ones. Then when it comes to our bottom legs, position those so that we can you can sit your flower down. Should you not want to stand it in a vase, you'll be able to sit it onto a shelf and the legs splay forward. So sew the top closed in the same way. And then turning the bottom of the body upwards like that, we're just going to sew those legs onto the third line. So if you've not ever made any of my designs before, this is very common with all of my designs, is take your centralizer point like that, draw a straight line down to your starting circle, or in this case, the ending circle like that, and then split that into thirds. So you've got a line there, 2 lines there, and you sew your legs onto the other lines that form the thirds on the circle of the bottom of the body. So I'll do that with several stitches across that side. Flip it and do the other ones. There we go. So final leg, and then we'll get on to doing some flowers. And we are going to learn some new stitches because I'm going to cover the double crochet, of course, which we've done to make our body, then the half treble, the treble, the double treble, and the triple treble. So we're using lots of different heights of stitch to make our flower. I hope you really enjoy this. Actually, I really enjoy the process of making these different height stitches. I've enjoyed making these flowers really thoroughly. So there we go. I'm sewing this last leg into position. Flip it over and do the other side. Right, and now it's time to add some eyes. Now, although I wouldn't usually recommend putting the eyes on before you do your finishing touches to your flower, in this instance, I am going to, because that means you can then fit your flowers around your eyes, which will just make it a little bit easier than having to sew the eyes on at the end once your flowers are in place. So we're going to count 8 rounds up from the neck. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds up from the neck. That's where my eyes will start. And then if you draw a line from your centralizer straight up the middle of the head, so having counted 8 rounds up, so just to recap, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds up there, and in a straight line from your centralizer point like that, then count 4 stitches out either side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That is where I am going to start one eye. So just to recap, 8 rounds up, and then from your central point count 4 out. So you'll actually have an 8 stitch gap between both eyes. Bring your thread through for your cream first, and then I'm going to go up and around 3 rounds. So you see I've gone 3 up from the base there like that. So there we go, that's that one in position. Then 8 across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 across. I'll be coming over here. Let me just check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 across. To put my eye into position. Check that I'm feeling like I'm still central from there. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So that is the whites of our eyes in position. And then all we need to do is add the pupils in with your black yarn. So snip that one off. Now, what I'm going to give you here with sewing the blacks on is actually a technique that I've not given you before necessarily in my videos, but one that a lot of you might find handy. So I'm just going to really slowly demonstrate it so that it's here for you. And this is if you want to make the black really, really secure. So when you're using TOFT yarn and you're using pure wool, it isn't actually particularly slippy, it's quite grippy. So it's not something I've ever really had a problem with, is your eye threads coming out. But let me just show you, if you want to actually really securely knot them in place, what you can do. So you bring your black thread in, but you leave a long end like that where you've brought it in. Then sew up around 2 stitches. So we're putting our central black bits in. We did 3 wraps for our cream. We're doing 3 wraps, and we did 2 rounds for our cream. So I'm doing 2 and 2 for my black. So come across here, 2 rounds up, and then do 2 wraps on my black. 1 and 2, and then what you can do is you can go right the way back across the head to where you started, like that. So you've got your pupils in place, and then all you can do is tie a knot between these 2 black pieces here, and you can make that a double knot should you wish, so it's really secure. Then you snip your 2 ends so that they're short, and then you can just take your hook and hook that black knot back inside your head. And that means that what you've actually done is you've knotted both ends. And you could do this with anything, as in you could do that with when you're doing the cream, you could do that for any of the surface detail that you're putting on. It just means that there's actually a knot inside there that they can never ever come loose if you are kind of putting that surface detail on. And maybe you've found with your previous makes that you're finding that the odd thread of the eye comes loose. Now I'm just going to snip my ends off here, so we've got a fully completed naked plant ready to work our flowers. So my first one here is worked with blue as the colour 1 and hyacinth as the colour 2 in contrast. But the second one that I'm going to make is actually going to be the other way around. So I'm going to be using the hyacinth as my colour 1 and the blue as my colour 2 to put it in contrast. And these are 2 quite specific types of delphinium, which I'm very excited to say we are growing here at TOFT as well. So you'll be able to see lots of pictures of those in the next few weeks as they start to bloom. So when we're making a flower, you're going to need your colour 1, and then I would recommend using a centralizer. Now it doesn't obviously need to be a specific type of centralizer. If you don't have something that's a lobster claw like that, you will be able to just use a contrast piece of yarn to mark where you are as well. But what you're going to need to do, if you haven't got lots and lots of these, is make 1 flower at a time. So you are actually going to do your colour 1 first, your base, break your yarn, and then go straight into doing your top work on that, because you will need 1 marker per flower as you make them. So start as we normally do. So do your chain 2 and then your 6 into a ring. So this is all very familiar. 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And then go on to your round 1 where we're going up to 12. So go straight back in and do your 6 increases. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 11 and 12, and that marks the end of round 1 where you've got 12 stitches. And this is where we're going to put our marker in. So what we're trying to mark is where this round starts, because what you're going to do when you work your top contrast colour is you're actually going to work it into that round, but working on the surface of the fabric. So knowing where to start is essential, because we need to know that you've got the right number of stitches to work that pattern in. So what you're going to do is just pop your marker in like that. I'll just do that again so you can see that in case that went out of focus slightly there. So you put your marker in like that around those vertical lines beneath your live hoop, and then we're going to go onwards past it. So I'm going to go up again with another round of increasing. So there we go, there's 1, and you just leave that dangling in there like that. And when you get back round to it, there we go. You can just work around it and leave it in like that. So I'm doing the medium flower here. So I'm just going to carry on past it again. And then I'll recap these different stitches. And you see how I've chosen not to use a stitch marker in addition to the centralizer. I'm just doing it in one go. So first I'm going to actually do them, follow your pattern to make the flower, but I'm going to demonstrate the stitches for you almost in reverse. So at this stage, follow your pattern to get those stitches in the right order, but this will be a reference for those stitches for you. So a slip stitch, just to recap how to do a slip stitch, is you will put your hook in the next stitch along, yarn over and bring that through that one and then through this one in one go. To do a double crochet, the one that we've been doing throughout, you go in the next stitch along, yarn over and through, yarn over and through those 2 loops in one motion. Then the next one is a half treble. To do a half treble, you go around your hook first, so you've got a wrap on your hook, go in the stitch and yarn over, and you'll have 3 loops on your hook. And to finish that half treble, you yarn over and you bring it through all 3 loops in one motion like that. So that's your half treble. Then your treble, you wrap around your hook first, come in again, so exactly the same way as we did with our half treble, but this time when we've got 3 loops on our hook, we yarn over and we come through 2 in one motion, yarn over and through the next 2 in one motion. So that's our treble. Then with a double treble, we go round once and we actually go round twice before we put the hook in the stitch. So you've got 2 wraps on your hook before you even begin. I'll just go back because this might be the new one to a lot of people. So you go round once and twice. So you've got a double treble first. So then go into the next stitch along, yarn over, and you've got 4 loops on your hook, at which point you take them off 2 at a time. So yarn over through those 2, yarn over through those 2, yarn over through those 2. So that's a double treble. And then we're also going to use triple trebles. And for a triple treble, you're going to go 1, 2, 3 times around your hook to begin with. So 3 wraps before you even begin, into that next stitch along and yarn over. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on your hook. And this time you take them off in 2s again. So yarn over through those 2, through those 2, through those 2 and through those 2, and that gives you that lovely longest one that will form the tips of your petals. So follow your pattern to make your individual flowers, and then I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll rejoin you to put the center on. So once you've worked all 5 petals into place, break your yarn and leave yourself a reasonably long end on there, because we're actually going to use those ends to sew our flowers into place afterwards. So leave yourself a relatively long end and break your yarn. And then this is where your centralizer comes in, and why we put one in there is because we're now actually going to work the center of our flowers onto the top. So what we're then going to do is rejoin our colour 2 to work this central layer of flowers on top of the original. So you've got your centralizer there, and that's marking the end of your round 1 where you've got 12 stitches. So what you need to do is rejoin here in the round below that. So you're going to put your hook in 1 round below that, because what we're actually going to do is work a 12 stitch round from our 6 out with our increases, working 12 stitches in that circle. So we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to treble 2 around the next stitch along. So you're going into your flower, following the spiral that you've got there. So you do 2 trebles around that one, onto your next stitch along in your spiral, there, and do 1 in there, and then slip into the following one. So by the time you've done 2, you'll be halfway round that round of stitches. And just to recap, you just need to follow that round in the spiral. So I'd be chaining 2 here, and then I'd be looking for my next post along to go around. So do you see, I've just worked that one, so I'll be finding that one there. Do my 2 trebles around that one. 1 treble around the following one. And then a slip stitch into the next one. Then once you've finished the last one, break your yarn, and at that stage you can remove your centralizer, ready to start to work your next flower in colour 1. Leave your ends nice and long, because once again we'll be using these to sew our flowers onto the base. So once you've finished making all of your flowers, don't worry about those ends because we're actually going to use the ends to sew them onto the body. And you're going to have all your different sizes. So you'll have 2 of the largest ones, and then you'll have your medium ones, your small ones, and your buds to go on the top. And we're going to begin by sewing in the biggest ones into position, 1 on the front and 1 onto the back. So what I would do is get your contrast colour 2 ends together, because you've got 2 ends as we finish that central bit. Put those onto your needle together and sew them through that stitch like that. And we'll use this to tack this flower into position first before we then go back and make sure it's very secure with our colour 1. So once you've got your first 4 in place at the front of the body, turn it round and do the same on the back. So exactly the same thing. Take your 2 contrasting colours, pop them onto your wool needle, sew those through that last stitch like that, and then line it up to the front, pull it round the back so it's in line, and almost tack it into position using that colour 2. Like that. So you've got your ends in and through to be able to snip off afterwards, and then using your colour 1, go around the edge and just really securely put that into position. So go around the edge just as you've been able to see on the time-lapse video of me putting it together, and put yourself in several stitches round those petals. That'll just sit them flat and make sure that that can never come off. So continue like you've seen, starting from the bottom and working them in rows. And so you should end up with your large one, medium, small and bud, 4 on the front and 4 on the back, and then 3 on either side. Now, a lot of this will depend on your tension, your sewing up, bits and pieces like that. Don't be afraid of making extra buds or extra flowers if you want to, and filling in the gaps should you wish. I know that some of you will probably enjoy combining all 3 colours as well, rather than just going for the colour 1 and colour 2 as I have here. So just to confirm, this is the hyacinth colour 1 with the blue on the edging, and with that your delphinium is complete.